Let's play a little game. Let's say the election last night didn't feel like it mattered. That there was no president on the ballot, not directly at least. No control of Congress was at stake. And to many it felt like just a couple of governors, a mayor's race, and a few local measures most people weren't particularly watching. And in that moment, as the results came in, suddenly the map shifted. Let's recap quickly. In Virginia, voters entrusted the governor's mansion to Abigail Spanberger. And in New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, won the governor's race, keeping that seat in Democratic hands. And in New York City, in a race most folks outside of the boroughs might typically barely notice, Zoran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, is now mayor of the largest city in America. And while all that was happening, voters in California approved Prop 50. That's the redistricting measure that could give Democrats up to 5 new congressional seats in 2026. So take this all together, and it's not a ripple. That's a real shift. So what happened? Well, people showed up for the basics, like rent, an old-fashioned word, groceries, and the ever-evasive in American life, healthcare. The candidates who won focused on cost of living, not slogans or sound bites. Spanberger talked affordability and steady leadership, and Sherrill pushed middle-class infrastructure and pragmatic fixes. Mamdani ran hard on housing and transit and justice. And the shutdown, that seemed to hurt Republicans, especially in places like Virginia and New Jersey, where federal jobs and infrastructure money hanging in the balance doesn't feel right to many people. Basically, voters didn't like the brinksmanship, and polling showed more blame falling on Trump and congressional Republicans. Trump himself wasn't on the ballot, but his policies and ethos were still in the room for many voters. His approval heading into the election was low, and without him running directly, his party simply couldn't carry the weight of the night. But underneath all of this, voters weren't just picking names. I think they were sending signals. And we've certainly been here before. James Madison wrote that the people are the only legitimate fountain of power. And this week, that fountain flowed. I'd actually say it did so not as a flood, but as a quiet course correction. In Federalist 51, Madison warned that ambition must be made to counteract ambition. Voters did just that, checking shutdown politics, balancing executive overreach, ultimately choosing function over fury. And Thomas Jefferson, after one of the ugliest elections in our early history at least, he reminded the country, he said, "We are all Republicans. We are all Federalists." It was his way of saying, we fight it out at the ballot box, but we still share the republic. So what now? Well, we watch what these new leaders do with the power they've been entrusted with. Do they follow through? Or do they fall back into the games that made us tune out in the first place? And maybe the better question is this. If this off-year election was a pulse check, what would happen if we started treating every race that way? Because sometimes the moments that matter most aren't the ones we see coming.